Enjoy this Cade lesson where you are going to learn how to use a simple Scratch program in order to create an animation. The only thing that you need is this video and a web browser. So let's click Create to get started. The first thing that you're going to need to do is create a new lesson. Once you get to a blank project, you'll see a few things. There's a code window as well as a place to put the code. There's a cat in this window over here. This is a preview of our animation. And down here is where we see our sprites. The first thing that we're going to need for our animation is a concept. So for this tutorial, I'm going to make an animation about watering a tree and having it grow larger after the sunshine comes out. So the things that we're going to need are things like a tree, the sun, water, clouds, stuff like that. So we're going to need to actually find those sprites. The sprite tab is down here, and you can either draw your own sprite or pick a pre-made sprite. Now we're going to need a tree, so you can actually just search in the bar up here for what you need. We're going to add another sprite for the sun, and we're going to add one more sprite for the clouds. All right, so what we're going to need to do now is find a place to put all these sprites. Now, with a white background, it doesn't exactly look like nature. So we're going to need to pick something that's appropriate. So you can go over here to the stage section and find a backdrop. In the same way that we search for sprites, we can also search for backdrops here. So I'm going to not exactly look for something outside because the names are a bit strange, but I'm going to go for the outdoors category. And you can see how that narrows things down. I'm going to choose a blue sky backdrop. I think that works well. So once we have our blue sky backdrop, what we can do is we can start positioning things out. So for instance, we're going to take this tree here and put it right at the base of the window. And we're going to take this tree, and since we're going to make it larger, what we're going to do is we're going to decrease the size of this to about 50 at first. It makes it a tinier tree. Then we're going to position the sun in the corner here. And we're going to put the cloud over it. Now this cloud is going to move after we're done with our animation out of the way of the sun, but for now it sits in front of the sun. So the animation, now that we have our sprites, is nearly complete. We actually just have to figure out what we want to do and then implement it using Scratch coding blocks. So the first thing that we're going to want to decide is what we're going to do for our animation. So for this animation, I'm going to have the cloud move out of the way of the sun, and maybe we'll play some thundering and storming noises while it does that so it seems like it's raining. And then once it moves out of the way of the sun, the tree will be exposed to the sun, and so it'll start growing. And so what we're going to need to do first is code the cloud sprite to move out of the way of the sun. So go ahead and select the cloud sprite either through selecting it in the animation window or down here in the sprite window. Once you have that, you can go ahead and move over here to the events tab. So the events tab houses code blocks that are used to control when things happen in Scratch. This can be anything from pressing a key to clicking on a sprite, or for our instance, to actually click the start button, which is this green flag up here, to get the animation going. So we're going to use this when flag clicked event block so that we can control when to start the animation overall. So once we have this, then what we're going to do is we're going to have the cloud move out of the way of the sun towards the tree. So this is to the left of the screen. When you move things to the left of the screen, you're moving in what's called the negative X direction. So down here, you have an X and a Y value, along with these arrows that help you remember which is which. And when I move the cloud over here, you can see that the value gets negative. It becomes less and less. There's some subtracted from it when you move it from the middle. If I put it in the middle, it's close to 0, but off to the left of the screen, it's more negative. So what we're going to need to do is subtract different values from this X position so that it slowly moves across the top of the screen. To do that, we go to the Motion Code Blocks tab, and we find the Change X By down here. Change X By. So what we're going to do is we're going to change X by -10. by dragging it out here and putting a minus sign in front of the 10. What that does when we click the flag is it moves our cloud across. Now, this animation would take quite a long time and people might not want to watch it if we have to sit here and click the flag every time we want to move the cloud. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a timed or maybe even a set amount of distance that the cloud has to go. So we're going to have it move out of the way of the sun and go off the screen. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this cloud and we're going to basically repeat this same amount of code, the same exact code block here, but we're going to repeat it a few more times. So we're going to go to the Control tab here, and you can see that there is a repeat block. This repeat block, or sometimes it's called a loop because it actually loops through this code a certain amount of times before stopping, is used to execute something in the Scratch program that normally you would want to happen a lot more. For example, you want it to move 10 every second or every time the screen updates so that it looks like the cloud is being blown by the wind. We could just move the cloud, say 200 paces this way or 300 this way, but that would move the cloud so fast off the screen that none of us would get to see it. So we have to make this gradual. We have to do it very slowly in pieces. So when we do this and we place the cloud back over the sun and we click play, it'll move it 10 times. And so we see that that took maybe about 4 or 5 times to fully get off the screen. So we're going to put it here. And we're going to actually set this to 50 times. So that's five times more than there was. And you can see the cloud just about skips off there. So we're just going to make it a full 60. And now you can see that when the cloud moves, it moves off the screen, even if it stops at the edge, just because that's the way that Scratch works. We can try changing this value to 70, 80, but the Scratch sprites always have to be in the screen a little bit. Otherwise, you can hide them away if you'd like, if you want to get them off the screen. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to make it go all the way here and then hide it. To do that, we're going to go back to the same tab. It says Looks, and we're going to click Hide and put it after this loop. So now if I move the cloud back over to the sun and click this, the cloud will move over and then it will disappear. And that's exactly what we want to do. Now, the one annoying thing about Scratch is that sprites maintain their position even when you're coding and going back and forth between changing things around. So when you want to have something run the same way each time, you actually have to reset the state of your different sprites and the state of the game or animation or music instrument, whatever you're coding. It always has to be reset if you want it to behave the same way each time. So in order to do that, we're going to take our cloud and we're going to make it visible again with this menu. We're going to bring it over here to where the cloud is, and we're going to add an initial code block that allows us to push the cloud, or actually just place it right over the sun every time we start the flag. To do that, this go-to block will record the current position of the sprite when you place it. See how those numbers are changing? Put it where you'd like, and then go and take the go-to block and place it before everything else in the code. What that will do is, no matter how far the cloud is on the screen from its starting position, it'll always start at that location. And finally, there is one problem. If we try to run this animation twice, we're going to run into a similar problem where the cloud is it's invisible the whole time. So what we're going to want to do is actually change the visibility to show using the other one of these blocks at the very beginning. And so now when we run this code, we get a perfect cloud drift each time. And that's what we're looking for. So once we have this, then we want the tree to grow bigger. So that's one thing that we're going to need to implement using the same exact purple blocks. We're going to set this size. We're going to use the set size block to do this. Now, if I tried to use it in this code window, this is for the cloud, so I don't necessarily want to do that. What I want to do is select the tree and then code this tab instead for when I'm talking about the tree. So that's one thing you keep track of in Scratch is what you're coding. Sometimes problems arise from when you're trying to code one thing, but you're accidentally in another coding window, so it doesn't work the way you'd like. So we're going to need to make sure to keep these separate. Now, there is one thing that I need to do, and that is time it out. So we know that the cloud, when I press this, takes about, well, let's count it out, 4 seconds or so to pass all the way to the end of the screen and then disappear. And so if it's at least 4 seconds, then what we're going to want to do is go to the tree, create a flag event again, just like for the cloud. And then we're actually going to use one of these control statements, or the orange blocks like we did, except it's not a loop, but it's a wait. This wait block will actually tell the program to hold on for this amount of time before proceeding through the rest of the code. And that's so that we can get the cloud to actually travel all the way to the end of the screen and disappear before the tree starts growing. So that took about 4 seconds, and we're just going to make this 5 seconds. Now that we have this 5-second timer, what we're going to do is we're going to change the shape of the tree. Go to looks and go back to that set size to block that I was talking about. Now, we could just have the tree double in size as soon as the cloud disappears, and that would be kind of funny, I will admit. So we're going to go here and just see what that looks like. Wow, okay, so it took a little bit longer than we thought. We might actually want to decrease this to 4 seconds. But yeah, that tree grew really fast and just kind of popped out of the screen. So it looks a little bit clumsy. So what we're going to do here is we're going to smooth that out. We're going to create a gradual, so it looks like it's growing, a gradual change. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait 4 seconds and then set the size to a smaller number, say 125%. This is smaller, but it is still a little bit bigger than it was before. Then we're going to use this same code construction, that is the waiting time and then the size, to grow the rest of the tree. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this block, and then we're going to duplicate it again. And instead of having all 3 blocks the same, because that wouldn't really do very much else besides when it grows for the first time, we're going to set these to wait 1 second each, and then we're going to make it slowly go up. So 150% and then 200%, our original number. And so now when we go back to the animation, we'll notice that even when we go to click the play, the tree is still the same size that it was before. That's the same problem that we had at the beginning with the cloud and the position. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this set size block just at the beginning to set it to 100%. And so once it goes over, the tree slowly grows after each second. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. So the only thing that this animation is missing is a little bit of sound. Obviously, we don't have any indication that it's raining other than the cloud drifting over, and so we want to find some thunder. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the cloud, because that's what's going to play the sound after it disappears, and we're going to find the costumes and sounds tab right next to where the code is. Click the sounds tab, and you'll see that there's already something in there. It's just a basic popping noise. And what we're going to do is we're going to delete that popping noise, and we're going to replace it with a thunder noise. So go in here and search thunder. And you can see that there is and so we're going to pick this real quick. Now this is going to play at the very beginning of our animation because it's covering the sun, so we want it to be raining at the very beginning of the animation. And then it's going to fade out once it grows. So what we need to do is go to the very beginning of where the cloud is, and we're going to go and play the thunderstorm sound under the sound tab. So once we have this, then we want it to stop raining as soon as it disappears. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop all sounds after the hide. Then let's give it a test. That seems a little bit short-sighted. So maybe we can have it not stop. And this is the kind of thing that you have to play around with to really figure out exactly what you want to do with your animation. It's really up to you. But I'm going to just leave it off for now because I think it sounds a little bit less abrupt. And that's it.